The fierce blaze of sunrise hits the desert sand as dawn transitions into morning. There is a distinct sound of a hawk's screech flying above the desert floor. Finally, a girl wakes up from her sleep and steps out of her hut. Her hut was small and round, made up of scraps found around the desert. One of its walls was a highway sign stating Phoenix, next exit. The other walls were made of various scrap metal packed together. Arising from the hut was a girl with messy brown hair and bright blue eyes. She was very thin and looked like she hadn't slept in ages. She wore a t-shirt with many tears and stains. Her sunburned skin was filthy with dirt and bruises, but she wore a smile nonetheless. "Another day," she exclaimed, though nobody could hear her. "I think I'll head out into the city today." Again, nobody answered as there was nobody to answer. But she found it less lonesome to talk to herself. The world had been ravaged by an apocalypse, leaving her the only survivor in the area. It was a depressing fact, but she tried to ignore it. Instead, she chose to believe that there were people outside the desert. She just needed to find a way out. All of that was beside the point, as right now, finding food was the priority. The city still had a lot of old shops, and they were full of food, a lot of which hadn't perished yet. The morning heat was unrelenting. She was sweating profusely, and she knew she'd need water soon. She walked out and found the highway. She would need this to find her way to the city. Not too long ago, she had lived in that city, enjoyed its marvels. She thought of how she had taken that life for granted, and wished she could go back to that life. However, thoughts like this only led to sadness, so she tried to think of something else. Her mind tended to wander to the life she once knew, but it always reminded her of how it was gone. Luckily, water was readily available in bottles in abandoned shops, so that wasn't much of an issue. However, food was the bigger issue. Most of the highly sustainable food had expired, and she had already eaten a lot of the non-perishables. However, there was still plenty of canned food she could find. She began searching through an old grocery store, hoping to find some soup brands she liked. There were many red cans with branded labels on them, and while she wasn't picky, there was a specific brand she was hoping for. There didn't seem to be any. This was becoming a recurring issue, as she had eaten much of this soup at this point. She started to reminisce about the meals her father used to prepare before the world fell apart. He would make the most amazing home-cooked meals, especially his steak. He was famous for his special soup. Only one brand could get close to its taste. As she thought about this, she felt tears start welling up in her eyes. No Fred's soup anymore. She grabbed a soup labeled as Lambell's soup and sighed. She wiped her eyes and began searching for some water. She was starting to get parched. She began to look through the old beverage aisle and eventually found the bottled water section. She began to grab a few to take home and began preparing to leave. Suddenly, she heard a loud bang, and she immediately knew what it meant. She ran for cover, hiding behind a fridge, cautiously peeking outside, hoping for a glance at whatever caused the noise. "Where am I?" the larger figure thought. He looked around and saw the silver portal close, and he began to worry. He had lost the smaller figure, and who knows where he could have gone. "Gosh dang it!" he yelled, his voice modulator making his yell sound much deeper. He pressed the button on the side of his mask, making the mask dissipate into thin air, revealing a pale face with messy dark blue hair. He began to look around to see where he was. It was an old abandoned grocery store, and it reeked of rotting food. He immediately regretted taking the mask off. He walked around, trying to think of what to do. "I don't want to report in a failed mission," he thought, "but I am not supposed to go into the underworld, which is likely where he went." Suddenly, he noticed a girl cowered behind a fridge. He immediately jumped back, but then he saw the look in her eyes. She seemed excited, as if she had found something she had been looking for her entire life. Can I help you?" he asked, and was immediately grabbed in a tight bear hug. "I can't believe it," the girl cried out. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there was another survivor, and I was right. I cannot believe it. I thought, I mean, you're here, and I am here. We are no longer alone." She had tears in her eyes and was basically jumping with joy. After years of solitude, she had finally found another human being. It was as if her life had finally flipped upside down. She was no longer alone. "I'm sorry," his figure shifted slightly uncomfortably. Who are you? And where are we? Oh, right. She finally let him go and cleared her throat. My name is Solaria Solstice. I am a survivor just like you. We are currently in what remains of Phoenix, Arizona. Oh. Right, and what planet are we on? Don't be silly, Solaria began laughing. Earth, you dummy. Wait, not dummy, it was a joke. Solaria's face had turned bright red, and she was worried that he may have gotten mad at her for calling him a dummy. But he shrugged it off. He sat down on a fallen shelf. Ah, I see, I'm in the Earth dimension. He began. Oh, my name is Jacob Driver. I am here on a job, actually. It's nice to meet you, Solaria, but I have a question. What exactly happened here? Why is everything destroyed? Solaria looked dour suddenly. You know, don't you? How could you not know? Her eyes had begun welling up with tears, and she was shaking slightly. She started wringing her hands nervously, debating whether to answer or not. Jacob could tell he had hit a touchy subject. Sorry, Jacob began. Look, when I say I'm not from here, I mean it. I'm not from Earth, actually, but from a different dimension. This must be hard to believe, but here, let me prove it to you. Jacob pointed to his right wrist, which had a weird bracelet connected to a glove. There were various flash drives tucked into the bracelet, and one raised. The end of the drive started glowing, then shot out a portal in front of him. Jacob let it sit for a bit, then closed the gloved hand, which closed the portal. It's called a dimensional drive, Jacob explained. Or a portal drive, it depends on where you're from. It opens portals to different dimensions. I just think of where I want to go, and it takes me there. Each individual drive has access to a different dimension. I looked at him in amazement. She had never seen anything like this, outside of old cartoons at least. She wanted to know more, but didn't know where to begin to ask. I'm sorry, Jacob began. I should not have asked something like that. It was inconsiderate. I'll tell you, Solaria said nervously. I'll tell you everything. Okay, Jacob said, but only if you want to. It all happened 3 years ago. Solaria was looking down at the ground. When I was 15, my sister was a high-ranking politician. She was very popular with a select crowd, but others were worried about her extremist views. They feared what she may do if she got more power, so she was stripped of her position. However, they underestimated how much influence she had gained. She had already taken control of several military generals and convinced them to follow her orders instead of the president's. It was infuriating to watch, but one day she got into an argument with my parents. I don't know what was said or what happened, but Solaria began choking on her words, fighting back tears. Jacob tried to say something, but she cut him off. She killed our parents and then ran off. She became a wanted criminal, so she decided to call the military and destroy everything. On her command, a nuclear war started, and all I could do was hide in the bunker. I was useless. I couldn't do anything. Nobody could. Jacob looked suddenly somber. It's not your fault. Without magic, what more could you have done? It's unfortunate, but it's just the truth of the matter. There was nothing more you could do. I guess. Solaria still looked down. They both fell silent. The weight of what happened kept the atmosphere down. Jacob tried to think of something to lighten the mood, but he couldn't think of anything. How was he supposed to follow up such a sad story with something light? Well, that's in the past, Solaria muttered. Now, what about you? What's your story? Oh, Jacob looked around uncomfortably. I was just an adventurous guy who wanted to help people. Yep, that's why I joined the Defenders. What are the Defenders? Solaria looked at Jacob with curiosity. Oh, that's right, you wouldn't know, Jacob said. The Defenders of the Multiverse, that's the full name, is a group of powerful beings dedicated to protecting the innocent from threats from other dimensions. We keep the sanctity of dimensional peace agreement by basically a set of interdimensional laws. Jacob noticed that Solaria had spaced out, lost in the details of what he was saying, so he decided he had better simplify his explanation. Basically, we're a group that protects people across the multiverse, Jacob said with a sigh. Solaria perked up a bit, deciding to ask about what missions Jacob had been on. Jacob just tried to be humble about it, but couldn't help but brag about his accomplishments. He talked about the time he defeated a giant space worm, his epic clash against a time-consuming wizard, and even when he saved a dimension from a space-destroying locust. However, he also talked about some of his failures. On more than one occasion, Jacob began, I have had to phone my partners for help, though it was never consistent. We don't have enough members to be classified as a team, so we get pulled into separate missions sometimes. Anyway, this latest mission, I was supposed to stop an underworld scout from stealing a special jewel, but he sent me here and got away. Jacob would have kept on going, but he suddenly realized something. He was supposed to be on a mission. He began to panic. He knew his boss would worry if he didn't send a message soon. However, he didn't want to disappoint the boss with a failure notice, especially after all the boss had done for him. Oh crap, he yelled out. I forgot I need to call my boss. I'd better go. Wait, Slayer grabbed out his arm and then let go and looked down, growing red in the face. Please, don't go? Well, Jacob thought through his options. You can come with, if you'd like. If you'd like to get out of here. We can find you a safe new home. Really? Slayer jumped up and gave him a big hug. Aw, man, you're the best. Jacob cleared his throat and Solaria let him go. He grabbed a device from his pocket and started pressing some buttons. Solaria waited nervously until she saw a hologram appear out of the device. A bald man with a wide frame and large mustache appeared. He wore a full suit with a red tie with what appeared to be childish crayon scribbles. Ah, Jacob, my boy, he bellowed. How did the mission go? I was getting worried that you got hurt or lost. The mission was a failure. Jacob looked down. I couldn't apprehend the scout, nor get the jewel back. I'm deeply sorry. That is disheartening, the man said. However, the important part is that you are okay. We can retake the jewel at a later date. Say, who is that girl behind you? Oh, Jacob began to think of a way to explain it. My, Jacob, the boss said in a joking tone. Did you lose the jewel because you got distracted with a new girlfriend? What? No! Jacob's face turned bright red as Solaria burst out laughing. I would never lose sight of my goal like that. I ran into this band dimension. She's the sole survivor. I was going to bring her to the base to be rehabilitated. The boss kept laughing, and Solaria kept leaning to a nearby shelf to keep her balance. She had gone mad with laughter. Jacob looked very indignant and felt embarrassed about the whole situation. Well, Jacob said loudly, do I have permission to return, sir? Yes, the boss wheezed, very pleased with the joke. Yes, please, let's return to the base. Jacob closed the device and looked at Solaria, who had come to her senses. Jacob didn't understand why she found the joke so funny. It was a very basic joke, and while the boss was easily moved, he didn't understand someone else laughing as hard as the boss. Sorry, Solaria said. I just haven't had a good laugh in a good while. Is that your boss? He seems cool. Yeah, Jacob agreed. He's kind of like a father to me. He raised me since I was about 7. Do you need to grab anything before we leave? Well, there is one thing, Solaria stated, but it's a bit of a walk away. That won't be a problem, Jacob said, pulling out a rectangular device. He set it on the ground and it began to unfold, revealing that it was in fact a motorcycle. It was a silver base with white metal coverings. He hopped onto its seat and revved the engine a bit. Hop on, Jacob patted the seat behind him. Just make sure you hang on. Jacob pressed the button and a second seat and a pair of handles came out of the center of the cycle for Solaria to hold on to. She looked at the vehicle with excitement, as she had never been on a motorcycle before. Okay, she replied, hopping on the back seat and grabbing the handles. You know, Jacob began, I almost never get the chance to use the second seat. Now, give me your directions. Solaria hung on tight as the air rushed across her face, cooling off the summer heat. She gave Jacob directions as needed, enjoying the ride for every second. When they finally arrived at her hut, she took a step out and ran quickly into the hut. I'll only be a minute, Solaria yelled, running into the hut for one last time. She looked at the stuff she had accrued over time, and took a deep breath. I'm finally free, she thought. I'm going to leave this place. She grabbed a photograph of her family, with one figure ripped out, a stuffed bear from her childhood, and a birthday card from her mother. She looked around for any item of importance, not knowing what to take and what to leave. She turned around to head out, and took a deep sigh, knowing this would be the last time she saw her hut. A life of pain was finally over. She could start a new life or a new adventure. Anything could be possible for all she knew. After all, magic existed. She was about to go to a new dimension, and it was all possible thanks to a complete stranger. Are you almost done in there? Jacob yelled. I need to get home so I can prepare for the next mission. Oh, yeah, I'm coming, Solaria yelled back, picking up her important items and running towards the motorcycle. She could not wait to go through that portal, where a new life would await her. Let us go, Jacob said formally and pushed the button on his wrist, sending out a golden portal. He packed up his motorcycle and began to walk towards the portal. Then he saw the look in Solaria's eyes. Are you scared? Because there's nothing to worry about. Hesitantly, she stepped towards the portal. She was excited but nervous at the same time. She had never been to a new dimension. She had never even left her country. Here, take my hand, Jacob said calmly. I was nervous the first time too, but it's easier to go with someone else. Together, the two stepped through the portal and into a brand new world.